And now we are talking about household waste, how we can all do our little bit in a new initiative that's been launched in Leeds. So welcome to the studio, Gavin Ellis, who's the co-founder and director of the environmental charity Hubbub. Hello, Gavin. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks.
So you are here today to launch this new project in Leeds.
It's part of the Leeds by Example campaign. So we've launched something today called Agree Your 3, where we're basically asking people in Leeds to just commit to sort of pledge to 3 things that they will do to either reduce the amount of waste that they produce or to recycle more, reuse more, but generally try and cut down the amount of stuff that we throw away in Leeds.
Yeah, let's rewind a little bit and Leeds by Example. We saw this launch then with little recycling points. I think there's a bubble machine in Leeds City Centre, which rewards people for putting in drinks cups and tins and things like that. Tell us about that. Where did that come from? How successful has it been?
Yeah, so that launched back in October. It's worked really well. So we've had, as you said, recycling points all around Leeds City Centre. People may have seen them bright yellow. Recycling bins for cans and plastic, and then there's also some orange ones that are specifically for coffee cups. So coffee cups can be recycled, but you have to recycle them separately. And then various other things. Yeah, so the bubble blowing bin that burps and blows bubbles when you put plastic or cans in it. We've got a number of recycle reward machines as well. So when you recycle an item, it prints out a little reward that you can then redeem off your sort of money off your next purchase. So trying all sorts of different things to see what will encourage people to recycle. And we've worked with obviously the council, universities, the shopping centres, workplaces all across the city. It's gone really well.
Can we quantify it, how successful it has been?
Yes, well, so in terms of coffee cups, we've in less than 6 months, 600,000 coffee cups.
Wow, really?
Which is a huge amount. Yeah, we've more doubled the amount of people recycling in Leeds City Centre as well.
And the on-the-go recycling is a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this in a moment's time. The one at home is a bit easier. You've hopefully got your recycle bin, you're separating your rubbish. It's when you're out, you buy a coffee, you get a drink, you get your meal deal and all that kind of stuff. If you haven't got a bin nearby, and the bins, I don't see them so much anymore, which were plastic this side, tins that side. People just chuck anything in there. It doesn't seem to me like it's properly managed. That's the difficult side of life to try and get a handle on.
Yeah, and this is an issue all across the country. It's not just in Leeds that the on-the-go recycling is really, really tricky to get people to put the right thing in the right bin. And then the other problem you've got on the go, people are out and about. They can't rinse things out in the way that you can at home, and actually putting say a plastic bottle which has still got some liquid in it, still got some Coke or whatever in it. That's a problem when it goes in the recycling bin, because it will. It's called contamination. It'll contaminate the rest of it and potentially spoil the whole lot. So yeah, it's a bit more problematic, which is why on the bins you'll see around Leeds it says empty plastic and cans, but basically we don't want it unless it's empty, because it does more harm than good. And also the other message we try and get across is, if in doubt, leave it out. So if you're not sure, just don't recycle it, put it in the general waste bin, because again it can cause more harm than good.
Do you think with recycling, and particularly on the go recycling, let's say, is that message getting across, or would you say it's a small group that are becoming more active, becoming more aware?
I think it's slowly getting across. I think there's a small but growing group of people who can want to do the right thing, know what they should be doing. I think one of the things that we've found, and part of the reason for launching this Agree Your 3 campaign, is I think now more than ever, and I heard you mentioned it in your trail earlier, that more and more people are aware of environmental issues, plastic pollution, Blue Planet 2, the school strikes, Extinction Rebellion, all of these issues that are really starting to, feels like it's coming to a head. And I think people are aware of there being a problem, but not necessarily aware of what they can individually do about it. So that's really what we're trying to do here, is to present some really simple things that we could all do in our day-to-day lives. And if you were to pick 3 of them, let's say hypothetically everybody in Leeds picked 3 of these things and actually stuck to them and did them, that would make a huge impact across Leeds, that kind of power of the collective. So it's really just to bring home some of these big, quite scary issues down to a kind of day-to-day level, and showing that it's manageable. If we all do make some very simple changes that are not about big sacrifice, that'll actually make quite a big difference.
So let's have a look at Agree Your 3 then. So you spoke to 1,000 people Is that right? And then drew up a short list of 10 things.
Yeah.
And from those 10 things that people can do within their household, you will identify the 3 that people as a collective will say, yes, let's focus on this. And then the council will start changing and shaping their legislation around it.
Yeah. So as you said, we did some surveying. We spoke to over 1,000 people around Leeds. Yeah. Got a sense of what are people doing? What are they willing to do? What aren't they doing at the moment? And then we've drawn up this short list of 10 things, which are relatively kind of straightforward. So things like using a reusable water bottle, a reusable cup if you drink hot drinks, take away hot drinks, cutting food waste, recycling electronics and recycling batteries, buying second-hand and donating old clothes to second-hand shops, and recycling clothing, sharing sort of items like gardening equipment or tools and that kind of thing that you only use every now and again, and do we all necessarily need one of those things? And maybe there's friends and family you can share them with, and then obviously the simple things like recycling, so recycling in the home, or as we just said, when you're out and about. So they're all fairly manageable, and the idea is that if everybody just picks 3 of those things and tries to stick to them, and then everybody's playing their part and doing their bit. Then
you've asked people what they want to do, and they've identified this list. I imagine those that have identified it will probably do it. It's the hard to reach people, isn't it? It's those that, I still talk to people. I have friends who are educated, they're smart, they've got degrees. They don't do simple stuff like put plastic in the recycle bin, Gavin. They don't do simple things like take their little pots and tubs of whatever they've just eaten and give them a quick swill and a wash before putting them in the recycle bin. So if you're struggling to get people that are educated and smart to do the basics, how do you get those that are actively resisting this?
Well, I think you don't start with the people who are actively resisting. I think that's the main thing. Is you start with the people who are doing it, and you try and grow that group. And I think that's you can very much see that happening now. Also, I think there's other ways in, and we talked about things like the bubble blowing bins. Now they alone aren't going to solve anything, but I think that kind of approach where you make it a little bit more fun and gamified and playful for people is a good way in. And then the other thing we've been testing is the recycle reward machine. So you actually get some sort of a monetary,
so incentivizing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there's a lot of talk at the moment at a national level about introducing a deposit return scheme. So whenever you buy a plastic bottle or a can, that you'd pay, say, 20 pence on top, and that would be redeemed when you recycle it. So you kind of incentivize it in a financial way like that. Scotland's announced that it's going to introduce it in 2020, and the English government is currently considering it. Which
is what used to happen in the olden days, and particularly in places like America with getting your 5 cents back when it came to glass bottles and things like that. And I'm wondering why that disappeared and what changed. And was it about the onus being placed on the person? Was it the reward didn't necessarily work too much? Was it businesses stopped caring so much about it?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what changed. I think convenience became king. It just became all about making things as convenient as possible. And there's no doubt that a lot of the kind of packaging that we're talking about is incredibly convenient, but I think we're now getting to a point where people are stopping and thinking, okay, well, yes, that's convenient, but it's generating such a huge volume of waste, and then you see the images of plastic pollution in the oceans and that kind of thing, and it's all connected. So I think as much as it is about recycling where you can, it's kind of going a step back from that and saying, well, where can we reduce and not actually use it in the first place? So there's this kind of age-old mantra and the environmental movement of reduce, reuse, and recycle. So you reduce in the first place. In that order. Reduce, and then if you can't reduce, reuse what you've got, and then if you can't reuse it, then recycle it. So I think it's always worth coming back to that and thinking about, okay, well, how can I actually cut down on the amount of stuff that I'm generating?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was looking at an old advert from 1950s, 60s in America, I think it was, where they were saying that disposable living is here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a pejorative term, it was a celebratory term. It was great. Why waste time, housewives, cleaning up and washing up when you can throw away pots and pans? We've made these disposable plastic knives and forks. You don't even have to run the tap anymore. And it's about that societal change, isn't it? How attitudes change. encouraged by research and the reality of the damage it's doing to the planet, but it is about how culturally things shift and take quite a long time to shift.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's not easy, as you said, because it's kind of built in for over the course of quite a few decades there. This behaviour and advertising kind of selling that disposable lifestyle to us. But I think I've been working in the environmental sort of sector for well over 10 years, and I've never seen the kind of shift that we've seen in the last 6 to 12 months in terms of how much public awareness has shifted. And people, I think there's a real willingness among the public now to do something. What's not always clear for the public is, okay, well, what can I do and what should I do?
Yeah.
So again, that's exactly why we've really.
Will you stick around for a bit with us?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Gavin's here. If you've got any questions or if you have any thoughts on this, love to hear from them. We'll talk to Gavin, because it's not just about our responsibility. I know there's a big bugbear about the plastics that councils do and don't recycle, and why don't councils recycle glass? That would be so much easier. Things like that we'll talk about in a moment's time. Traffic and travel on the way as well. We'll get